To begin, I'll state for the record that my name is Ben Bauman. I'm here in Indianapolis, Indiana. Today is June 12th, 2020, and I'm speaking via phone with Merwyn Fisher, who is in Pekin, Indiana. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, and we are doing an interview for the Indiana Oral History Initiative. So, just starting off, when and where were you born?
I was born just Pekin, Indiana, just a few feet from where I live.
All right, perfect. Okay.
Yep.
And what were your parents' names?
Hugh Fisher and Gertrude Fisher.
Okay.
Gertrude Terrell Fisher.
Okay. And how long was your family in Indiana?
As far as I know, well, my immediate family always have been.
Okay.
And my grandfathers on the Fisher side, folks came from Germany.
Okay, interesting.
But, we go back for years, yes.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay, cool. And what were your parents' occupations?
My father was a farmer, and my mother was a housewife, and then later years she taught school for about 21 years.
Okay, great. And what about, do you have any siblings?
I have a sister, 5 years younger than me.
Okay, and what's her name?
Sharon.
Sharon. Okay, great. So, how would you describe your childhood?
My childhood?
Yes.
Well, rather simple, but honest. My folks were church tenders and attenders, and I went along with them all through my life.
Yeah. And who would you say was the most influential person during your childhood?
Well, I'd say probably my mother, because my father passed away when I was 15.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Interesting. And did you have any understanding as a kid growing up about your mom or dad's political views, or?
No, not really. My grandfather was township trustee.
Oh, okay.
An assessor.
Yeah. Interesting. And did you ever have conversations with him about politics at all, or?
I don't really recall that I did. I barely remember him.
Okay.
But he was up in age.
Yeah.
When I he moved in with my mom and dad.
Right.
And I was still roughly 10 years old, probably. So don't ever recall of having any conversation with him.
That makes sense. Now, you were born, I believe it was, 1937?
That's correct.
Okay. And were you aware at all, or were you thinking much about World War II, or as growing up as a kid, or did that affect you at all?
Well, I do very vividly remember that my father thought that he was going to be drafted. Of course, as you know, in those days it was a draft.
Yeah.
But the war got over just before they called him.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah. I did have an uncle that was served, and he was killed in the Battle of the Bulge.
Really? Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah, my grandfather actually served in the Battle of the Bulge as well.
Uh-huh.
Interesting. So what schools did you attend as a child or teenager?
I attended Polk Township School 8 years, and then I went to, at that time it was the Pekin High School.
Right, okay. And how would you describe your educational experiences?
Very good, just average, but I hung in, and I was able to go ahead and finish high school when my father passed away. He had a dairy and I went ahead with the farming and dairy, and did finish high school.
Okay. Did you have any favorite subjects in school at all?
I liked arithmetic.
Okay.
Math. I liked math, and I didn't care too much about history.
Yeah.
Literature. I liked literature, and typing. I enjoyed typing.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. Were you in any extracurriculars or something like sports or after school clubs?
I was in some drama.
Drama. Okay. That's interesting.
Drama in some plays.
Yeah. That's cool. Okay. Now, what were your views as a kid about the state of Indiana or about being a Hoosier?
Let me back up just a minute.
Yeah.
Also, I played softball in school.
Oh, you did? Okay. That's neat. What position were you?
Okay. Excuse me?
What position were you?
I played catcher quite a bit.
Catcher, okay. That's a tough job. All right.
Okay, back to your question then.
Yeah.
How did I view at that time the state of Indiana?
Yeah.
Well, I took the attitude. I thought the state of Indiana was more considered a rural state.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, the county we live in is, I believe, the largest geographic county in the state.
Yeah.
Or close to it, anyway.
Right.
And but real laid back, rural, and southern Indiana just hadn't come along as quick as from Indianapolis or even say Columbus area on north.
Mm-hmm.
I know during the time, well, you'll be asking me, I'm sure, about the ERA or some of those.
Right. Yeah. Interesting. Okay.
So that's, I just, and very low crime and in those days, and you just didn't hear hardly anything about what we do today.
Sure. Now, where did you attend college?
Attend what?
College. Where did you attend college?
College?
Yeah.
I didn't go to college.
Oh, okay.
No, I just went through 12 years up my, I finished high school, yeah.
Oh, okay, perfect. All right. And so what did you want to do right after high school? Did you, were you planning on working? You said your father was a farmer, correct?
Right.
So
and,
were you planning on taking over the farm, or?
Well, yes. In those days, at the age of 15, I thought that was the greatest thing.
Yeah.
Of course, I really hated for my father to pass away, but
sure.
If I could be in control of a farm, but then I always thought if I did have a chance to go to college, I'd like to be a veterinarian.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's interesting.
But I stayed on the farm, and over the years I purchased quite a bit more ground, and went on, gotten bigger, not real big, but medium-sized farm in those days.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. And so,
I sold my dairy in 1974, and that was the year I was elected to the state legislature.
Okay. Interesting.
And went with beef cows.
Yeah. All right. And so, how did you first get involved in sort of politics and stuff?
Well, just I knew the previous township trustees and assessors, and I just got the idea, well, that would bring a little extra income, and my wife, of course, I was married at that time, and my wife was also good on figures, and so I ran for trustee and assessor 2 terms, and well, I say 2, almost 2, because in '74, when I was elected to the legislature, one of my attorney friends advised me I should withdraw, so my wife finished up from November through December of my 8th year as trustee assessor.
Sure. Okay. Interesting. And let's see. So you mentioned you were married. When did you get married?
Got married in 1962.
Okay. And what was your wife's name?
Darlene.
Darlene. Okay. And,
Darlene, but everybody knows around here is Connie.
Okay.
Her real name is Darlene Constance Halb.
Okay.
And we talked about it, and I said, well, I like Connie better than Darlene, so that's how it happened.
Wow, all right. That works. And do you have any children?
Yeah, we have 2, yes.
Okay. And what were their names?
Trendy.
Okay.
Trendy Darlene, and Brock Conrad. Conrad was my wife's dad's middle name.
Yeah, great. Okay, cool.
Well, let's see. I guess it was his. Maybe it's his first name. I'm not sure. Yeah.
And let's see. Did your family influence your career at all, or your decision to get involved in politics? You mentioned your wife was pretty helpful. It sounded like.
Right. She no problem with me running for trustee, and my sister-in-law, they happened to be up here the evening that I needed to sign up with the Secretary of State the next day. It was the last day.
Yeah.
And I remember as my sister-in-law left the house that evening, says, go for it.
Yeah, okay.
And, and so I did.
That's cool. All right. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty great. It's, talk about a pretty cool thing to do. So, and what shaped your political outlook?
You say, what was it?
Yeah. What shaped your political outlook when you got involved in politics?
Well, probably, of course, I ran on the Democrat ticket, and I knew Washington County in those days was more so Democrat than Republic. As far as issues, I just believe strongly in fairness and the working man, and of course, as things today have gotten pretty lopsided both ways, I think.
Yeah.
both parties is just a kind of a mess, in my opinion. But
things have changed a lot. That's for sure.
in those days, back in '74, I looked at it as a possibility. I had a rough district as far as a Democrat to run in.
Yeah.
But the year, because I represented the majority of my votes, not majority, but a big percentage came from Lawrence County. Well, it would be a majority, yeah, because Lawrence was so much bigger and populous. And but what helped me was the Watergate year, and everything swung back to the Democrats.
Yeah.
Or a lot of the offices swung back to the Democrat Party, and that's what helped me. And I was able to hang on for two more terms then.
Yeah, okay. That's great. Were there any key issues that you wanted to champion or fight against?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite understand you.
Yeah, so when you first got elected or when you first started running, were there any key legislative issues that you were interested in?
Not really. No,
okay.
just just wasn't anything that I hear people say, well, I want to run for the office because this is what I want to see change. I didn't go to Indianapolis with the attitude of just trying to introduce a lot of legislation. I thought there's enough on the books, but then some pretty important things I thought. One was that I told you about the Lyme law, which never did pass, but I mentioned that the other day. But at that time, our county soil conservation person was he was over the county in that department, and he called me in and says we need to do something about the quarries because they're not getting the lime crust good enough. And that was probably the one that I spent the most time on, working with Purdue University, and I really, really was discouraged when that did pass.
Sure, I bet. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. And that
was a real good example of the politics.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll not mention anything about the speaker. I got to thinking about it. Well, it wouldn't be good, but it is a good example of how politics works.
I mean, so that's interesting. So I mean, I guess if you don't want to, without mentioning names, would you be able to sort of describe, what the political situation was that maybe interfered in this bill getting passed, or?
Well, it was opposite party, and of course, at that particular year, the Republicans were in charge of the House. Yeah. And of course, as you know, the Speaker is full charge of signing bills to the committees, and then going through the committees, and then calling them down in the end after they get through the readings. Yeah. And I couldn't get on a witness stand and say this, but he allowed it to go through the committee hearings, and made a promise to me personally, that he would call it down the last day of the session, but he didn't. Oh, wow. But before the House went in session, I seen a certain gentleman that owned a quarry in the state of Indiana, and I'm told this. Now, I couldn't say that for sure, but I was told that he was a big supporter of the Republican Party. And so I don't know what he said to him, but I have a feeling that there would have been some, like a funding maybe, to the party if he'd have let it go. So money in politics kind of thing. Yep, that's what I call rotten politics. Yeah. Because it wasn't anything. It was helping agriculture. It was helping farmers. It takes about 3 years for regular crushed lime to dissolve and get into the other elements in the soil. Yeah. And that's where this gentleman from our county was how he got involved, because you wasn't getting your full benefit from the product. Yeah. And it was only $5 a ton. It was going to cost the farmers. I never had that first complaint from a farmer, but they was going to get a better product. It just simply the screens, the way I understand it, had holes in them and would allow the so-called little rocks to get in the regular product. Yeah. Yeah, so. Interesting. Okay. So when you first got interested in politics and got involved in it, did you have any national political heroes or even state or local heroes in politics? Well, always like Lee Hamilton. Lee Hamilton was always a good friend of mine, and of course I was acquainted with our local people. Now I hadn't never met the Lawrence County chairman, Democrat chairman.
Yeah.
And I called him. I had a phone in my barn, and I called him that morning and asked him his permission. And he told me, he says, well, I've already promised to support a fellow by the name of Merwyn Fisher. Maybe I shouldn't mention his name, but he was a friend of mine, him and his wife both.
Yeah.
But he was in at that time. And he said, I won't support him, but if you beat him, I'll be for support with you in the fall.
Okay.
And that's the way it turned out. And by the way, he got killed in a plane crash.
Oh my gosh.
Irvin did. Yeah, he is a pilot and just local pilot. But yeah, he lost his life in a plane crash.
Wow. Jeez.
But this was after I'd defeated him.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Wow. Let's see. So, moving on, I guess a little bit more into your career. What was your first election day like, and how did you feel?
Well, it's overwhelming. I took the attitude even on from the time announced to election day that if you've seen the people, get out and see people, go door to door and go to fairs and go to all activities I could. And I drove several hundred miles because I lived 50 miles from Lawrence County.
Sure, okay.
And there was a lot of events that took place up there, likewise here in Washington County. And then plus I had 2 townships in Orange County. And I even tried to take in those because one vote can make a difference.
Oh, yeah,
and,
definitely.
So that's what I did, and I would try to get quite a bit of help, my family, and a little slogan I used. Of course, our son, Brock Fisher, had T-shirts printed up, Body by Fisher.
Okay.
Yeah. And but I went at it hard with balloons, blowed up balloons, and we'd blow them up and fill the car full and head for a fair or head for an activity and try to associate close to people because that's what the legislator is, a citizen legislature.
Yeah, that's great. Cool, okay. Now, did your feelings change with each election?
Well, yes, because I could tell that it was getting rougher, more rough as far as getting Democrat votes because, like I say, things started swinging back, and it just and there was a good guy. I had defeated a pharmacist, Ralph Anderson.
Okay.
And my first year, and then the second year, in fact, I just don't recall for sure. I think it was maybe another pharmacist, but I don't recall his name. But then the third year was, and I don't recall that one, but the fourth year, the year I was defeated, Rick McIntyre, a well-known construction company in Bedford, their son, and he defeated me then in the fourth year.
Okay, yeah. Interesting.
And then maybe you wouldn't want to put it in, but then he committed suicide years later.
Oh, really? Wow, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And he ran for Congress, too, but got defeated.
Yeah. Wow. Jeez.
But he was a nice young man. We'd confer and, talk and all, but he beat me the fourth year.
Interesting. Okay. And when each election cycle, when you were running again, did you did you have to change your campaign strategy at all?
I really didn't. I had several signs printed.
Yeah.
And put them up and did quite a bit of posters around different places, and had several people help me. I would get each time I would get school students. I knew the teachers, and they would let them out as far as a history teacher, and they would let them out to help on election day, and some of it pretty costly. I hired some people to stay at the polls, and likewise with the students, and I really didn't change much. It just came down with that philosophy that seeing people and greeting people, and you go to the polls nowadays and there won't hardly even be anybody there handing out material.
Right.
That's another thing that's really changed, and like I say, here in southern Indiana, that was really a big thing at that time.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. What were you thinking as you walked into the State House your first day in office?
Well, I just, again, overwhelmed.
Yeah.
To being proud that I'd won, and
very
proud thankful for the people that supported me, and wanted to do the very best I could, and not only what little legislation I did work on, and I got some passed, but the fact that representing the people the best I could, and probably, as I mentioned, the ERA was probably the biggest controversial issue at that time that I served, and I just, with Washington County and even Lawrence County, not as much as Washington County, but we just weren't there yet.
Yeah.
And so I didn't support it, and the teachers was after me. They got after me because they wanted it. And in fact, the lobbyist for the teachers told me, says, "We'll beat you."
Okay.
Yeah. And they did. Well, I wouldn't say they did. Things just was turning back, but I think they helped too.
Yeah. And so you basically, you kind of hinted at, so I guess, was it something that you personally didn't support, or was it just because of your constituents, or like what was the decision-making process in regard to that?
On the ERA?
Yeah.
Well, just the fact that people in my district I didn't feel the majority of them was with it yet.
Right.
Yeah,
okay.
Wasn't supportive of it yet. Yeah.
Sure. And so you would say that was like the most controversial thing in your time in the General Assembly? I
would say it was probably the most controversial, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. What about when it comes to your expectations for the legislative process? When you first got involved in the General Assembly, was the process more or less complicated than you thought it would be?
It was probably a little bit more, although you do have a lot of assistance.
Yeah.
Through the Legislative Council.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what that's called now. But,
I guess like legislative services and stuff.
Legislative services you had, and they were very good to work with. As far as drafting legislation.
Sure.
And there was a lot of help. I know there was several came in my freshman year, and we even had a little extra assistance because being that many.
Sure.
If I remember right, Pat Bauer, I'm sure you know Pat, don't you?
I've heard of him. Yeah.
Well, he's still there.
Yeah. I haven't interviewed him yet because we don't interview current members, but I've heard of him.
Pat's still there. He's been there ever since 1974.
Yeah. Yeah, quite a career there. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a long time.
In fact, he was speaker for a few years there.
Yeah.
After I got out, yeah.
Wow.
But it was. But one thing, I had a concern for the lobbyist.
Mm-hmm.
But I found out that, to be blunt about it, a crooked lobbyist isn't around very long.
Yeah, okay. Interesting.
Most of them were very helpful. We were always involved with Farm Bureau,
mm-hmm.
and they were wonderful. The Farm Bureau lobbyists, they would even get information or tell you where you could get it, even if it didn't have anything to do with Farm Bureau or agriculture.
Wow, okay.
And they were really helpful. And then there was others. I worked close with the Farmers Union, even though we didn't always agree, but we still were friends and very good lobbyists.
Sure.
And, a lot of others. Now, I couldn't say that for the teacher lobbyists. They were pretty arrogant.
Okay.
But that was their choice.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
And I'd meet with the local teachers, and I could pretty well support the local teachers. But up there, the teacher association, this is a different story.
Yeah. Sure. Interesting. Did you have any political mentors when you first got into the General Assembly?
Jimmy Allen, a well-known name here in the county, was an attorney, and he was a good friend of mine. He settled, when my father passed away, he settled our mom's business estate deal, and I knew he would. Another gentleman by the name of Ross Brown, he was a teacher over at West Washington School.
Okay.
On the west side of the county, and good friends, and I guess probably not that they called me up and said, we want you to run, but I was good rapport with our county Democrat organization and overall, and so I would say those were some of the best probably mentors, or what you would say, yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Interesting. Now, when it came to interacting with your constituents, how did you know, what your constituents wanted, and how would you communicate with them?
Well, I would, again, in Washington and Lawrence County, there wasn't really a whole lot of requests.
Okay.
I did. One thing stands out, which is where a person as a elected official has to make a determination. I did have a lady call me one time, and she said, I want you to introduce legislation that forbids a nurse to wear a watch.
Interesting.
And I studied about that. I thought, well, of all people, doesn't a nurse need a watch? What had happened, she had been in the hospital, and the nurse, she said when she'd go to turn her, why, she'd skin her back. So anyway, that was the end of that legislation, because I thought it just would have been pretty stupid.
Yeah, that would have been a unique one, that's for sure, yeah.
But I had, there was support for one of my bills I got passed. Was they actually called it the Pass Your Gas bill, but it was to help farmers get back their tax on gas that was used for agriculture, off-the-road vehicle gas.
Oh, okay.
And
sure.
And that's the reason they named it Pass Your Gas bill.
Yeah.
And then I had another one that allowed for bus drivers. Of course, again, in those days, all buses were owned by individuals,
right?
At least in this area, and so there wasn't anything in the contracts. If during the contract years gas would take a big jump, there wasn't anything to cover the bus drivers, so we called it an escalating clause.
Okay.
And yeah, so I got that passed, and then I worked a lot on. Well, the concept was work for what you get. In other words, welfare.
Okay.
And I guess for a better word, enforce people to get off their fannies and work and to earn a living.
Right.
And but that got to be a pretty hot issue, really. I know we went to a hearing up in the northern part of the state, and oh my, it was, well, actually got a little scary, to be honest about it.
Wow, okay. How so?
Yeah. Well, just, well, the way things are today, and people weren't getting fair treatment.
Yeah.
Didn't think they were. I better not say any more.
Okay, fair enough.
But I never did get any legislation through. I had my name on it, but if I remember correctly, they took my name off in the Senate because somebody over there, of course it would have been through the leadership, but
yeah,
they wanted to get favored on it.
Okay.
And I don't honestly remember for sure if anything actually passed on that or not. I just don't recall for sure.
All right. That's interesting, though. Yeah.
Then I was on the inter-study committees. Well, the committees I were on was the Ag Committee and County Government. And then, believe it or not, I was on the Judiciary Committee, which was very interesting.
Yeah, I bet.
About courts and criminal codes, I believe the name of it was at that time. And that was a very interesting committee. And I was, let's see, what was the other name? Ranking member, not vice chairman, but ranking member of the courts of the county. And county committee for the years that I guess a couple years there, and then I had we had study committees also. One that I very well remember that the speaker appointed me to chair a committee on daycare, and
that's interesting.
So we worked during the summer during the interim on that. But I don't recall if anything ever came out of that or not. But we held the hearings, and there was quite controversial, believe it or not. On that is one thing that I did learn, that you may go into a committee and think you're fully in favor of it, and then you hear the other side.
Yeah.
You may change your mind.
Yeah, no, that happens. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So, but that's another attitude I took, to be sure and listen. And that's true with life. Be sure and listen to both sides, and then make your decision.
Yeah. Definitely. That's important. Yeah. Do you remember what the first bill you sponsored was?
I honestly can't tell you for sure. I guess there'd be a record of it, wouldn't there?
It probably is, yeah. Just curious if there was something about it.
Quite a bit of research, yeah.
That was memorable.
I just don't. The gas bill was one of the first. It may have been my first year, so I'm just I'm just not sure.
Sure.
I worked a lot on checkoff program for soybeans. Also.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And I had my name on several pieces of legislation with other sponsors I co-sponsored.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. What were the regular interactions like between members of the General Assembly, formal and informal?
Okay, now, what really, you mean between both parties?
It could be both parties or just, between people that are of the same party. What was like the general vibe around other members of the General Assembly and how they would interact, at...
I'd say
Yeah.
overall it was 95%, just real good. It didn't matter to me, when I was talking with it, if it's Republican or Democrat.
Yeah, okay. Sure.
Yeah, and I was on some Republican legislation, and
Yeah.
likewise. Yeah.
So people got along pretty well then, it sounds like.
Right. I had an interesting situation. Would you want what I got funding for in the district?
Sure.
One I'm really proud of was got funding for a new mental retardation center in Lawrence County.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And also got funding for renovation of the Williams Dam at Williams, Indiana, which is in Lawrence County.
Interesting.
And I carried on with Governor O'Bannon. He had gotten us started for funding for a new National Guard armory here in Washington County. And but interesting situation with the mental retardation center. I had a letter drafted, got it drafted to send to all the budget committee members, and even my Ralph Anderson, who I defeated, even helped me on it as far as support.
Wow.
Through the committee.
Yeah.
And I believe he sat in front of me, was chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, and we was able to get about $1 million for the structure of the new mental retardation center there in Lawrence County.
Interesting.
And that was something that I was very proud of.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
Then, of course, we got the other also funded, and so
cool. Okay.
there was a real need for all those things, all 3 or 4 of them. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, were there any differences between House and Senate members?
Differences by what do you mean?
Like, and how they acted. Some people I've interviewed in the past, said that, sort of the way they behaved might differ. But some people say that it's pretty much the same either way. Did you have any impression of a difference between House members and Senate members?
I would say the 6 years I served, there was 3 or 4 in the Senate that were a little bit hard for them to talk to you.
Okay. Interesting.
In other words, they were kind of above us legislators.
Okay. Yeah. Wow.
Get the point?
Yeah. I've heard it before. That's why I asked. I was curious if you...
Now, that may be as much my fault as anybody's. I really didn't approach them and to talk to them because I really didn't have any reason to.
Right.
But they would go by and like I say, it might have been as much as my fault as theirs, but I got the attitude that they were a little bit above us.
Yeah. Interesting.
One particular one I'm talking about ended up in jail too, so.
Oh, okay. Wow. All right. Okay. Well,
But we also had a member of the house, which was a friend of mine at that time, but ended up, he filled his pockets with a bunch of stuff from Marsh store.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah. I don't know about him actually serving time or not, but it's a bad deal. I know it really surprised all of us, or most of us. Just didn't think, didn't think he was that type of person. But I always told the story. I said, well, out of 100 people as members of the House, how many groups, organizations, or whatever could you take 100 people and say they're all perfectly good?
Right. Yeah, I mean, someone's bound to do something eventually.
No, I made a lot of friends, both sides of the aisle, both Democrat and Republicans.
Yeah, that's great. Now, when you're serving, because I've heard, historically there have been cases of people, sort of breaking rules and potentially even getting arrested and stuff who are members of, the General Assembly. Is there any indication at all? Like, were there any people that, in your time, that you just kind of got the impression, like, they might be pushing the line a bit, or perhaps being a little too aggressive about policies in ways that are, possibly unethical, or was it pretty much kind of all taken by surprise when you guys, heard about cases like that?
Really, on the majority, it was taken by surprise.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what the way I would say that. It was mostly by surprise because word spreads fast, and I believe we would have heard about it if maybe I was just naive, but
right.
I would say it'd be more on the side of just not knowing it was pretty much covered up.
Yeah. Okay. What did you think of the process of generating a bill?
Well, it was interesting. Like I say, I worked closely with the Legislative Council, and of course you had a chance to look over it before it actually the legislator would introduce it.
Yeah.
And I thought it was a pretty neat process.
Yeah, okay. So I guess you felt that it was pretty efficient and good for the state. Well,
I guess I trusted who drafted them. I never did draft any myself. I know the attorneys drafted some of their own, but I felt that they were looking at the present statutes that related anything at all to that, and I never recalled that any problem on legislation that I introduced that they said, well, no, we'll have to back up now and look at this. We left this out, and it should be in there, and all that. So
right.
I thought it was pretty true process. Yep.
Sure. Okay. Now, how was legislative business conducted outside of formal votes and committee meetings?
Well, there was a lot of discussion. Like I say, either for or against, and maybe even was together maybe an evening to a function of some type. Some corporation was putting on some legislative function.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of discussion about the day's operation, what had happened during that day, and
right.
And you could learn probably more that way than you could actually in a committee meeting.
Sure. Okay.
You had to be somewhat aggressive. You couldn't just stand back and stay in the corner. You had to get in amongst them. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, when people were voting on bills, did you have any sense of how people would vote before they actually voted?
Yeah, quite a bit.
Okay.
Not everybody, but
Yeah.
quite a bit of sense, yes, of whether or not they support it. A lot of times just talking to someone,
Okay.
even though they didn't come out and say, I'm going to or I'm not going to,
Yeah.
why you could get their feel.
That makes sense. What roles did party leadership play in the and sort of the drafting of legislation or what bills passed? Did you ever feel like, they were sort of using their position of power to help get bills across or influence your decision on bills? Or
I never did see that there was any influence.
Okay.
I don't recall. And really, well, for example, the Lime bill that I was telling you about that I lost, but
Yeah.
the party, I don't recall the speaker ever saying to me that, no, this isn't any good, we don't want to have this, or because way I remember, if it was something that wasn't very good, they wouldn't even sign it to a committee.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
That's what really frustrated, because the speaker at that time the year I introduced that about the Lime law, that he let it go through first and second reading and get to the House floor.
Yeah.
And third reading and all, and then for a vote, and he didn't let it go. But I have a feeling that his mind was changed in a matter of a few minutes.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
On that day.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Because I did actually see this individual that had owned the quarry go into his office.
Yeah.
So,
That's interesting. What would you say the public does not know about the Indiana General Assembly and how it operates?
I think a lot of people take the attitude that there's so many people that don't support them. In other words, that they're sent up there and they play and don't take the attitude, well, we voted for you and put you up there, now you support us. And I have that feeling that a lot of people take that attitude much more now than they used to even.
Okay. Yeah.
But I think that was somewhat, I always got along real good with my constituency, and but I always had that feeling maybe they thought, and you'd have several people get in touch, and I always tried to respond to everybody, and if I couldn't support what they was wanting, I'd tell them why.
Right.
And
Okay. Now, did your legislative service affect your family life at all?
Yes, it did, quite a bit, because I stayed all week, being that far away.
Yeah.
I was about 100 to 105, 10 miles away from home, so I just stayed all week.
Sure.
And it did. One year, 77 maybe, is when we had the big snow, and our electricity was off, and but they made it. Of course, the two kids were young at that time, and wife says they went to bed and covered up to keep warm.
Yeah. Wow.
Because we had electric heat, and electricity being off, he didn't have any heat.
Yeah. Jeez. Was there ever a time while you were serving where you thought about not trying to get reelected because of your family, or was that not an issue?
No, it really wasn't. My mother, the first year I ran for representative, I'll never forget it. She hollered at me from house to barn, and I told her, and oh, she says, you'll become a crook. And that's the word she said, and maybe she said, well, I hope you don't. But anyway, yeah. I told her, I said, well, it's what I make it.
Right.
And she ended up supporting me and passing out material for me.
Ah, okay. There you go. That's interesting.
But as far as my wife, she was very supportive. She'd help me campaign, but I knew it was a drag on her, because being at home and had the beef cattle and they could get out and all this, just obligations here. But I'd call home, and a little funny story.
Sure.
I had a fold-up disc, and from the back of the house here, you could see that disc where it was folded up. Well, she mistaken the disc for two cows, and I would call home and say, well, are the cows in? Are any cows out or anything? Nope. Said they're still in. She told me later, said, you know what? Said that was the cows that never did move.
Oh my gosh.
But but I had neighbors to watch. You know, they knew I was up there. And
yeah.
I had good neighbors if she had needed assistance. But to my knowledge, she never did have to have any one-on-one assistance.
Yeah, all right. Now, I know we talked about this a little bit already, but thinking about the ERA legislation, and you were talking about how it was the most controversial one that you had to deal with. For people that probably aren't too familiar with the ERA that might be listening to this at some point, could you describe what made it so controversial, especially to the counties that you represented?
Well, if you go back to history,
yeah,
I think it was just simply that a lot of people in this area still had the attitude, well, the woman should be at home with the family.
Right.
And I think that was one of the biggest factors. Well, that's just, to me, that's where I'd be coming from as far as
sure.
Didn't think women should work, although my wife worked and my mother was a teacher, as I told you, and all, but people just took the attitude that, but I'm supportive of a woman, and in fact, if a woman's doing the same job now, they should get the same pay.
Right.
If they're doing, although I don't think a woman should be in the fire department and climbing the ladders and all that, but that's just my feeling.
Right. Okay. Let's see. Now, what was your proudest moment as a legislator?
Oh, my proudest.
Yeah.
Probably getting the funding for the mental retardation center.
Sure. Yeah, that's pretty good.
I'd say that probably the proud, other than being elected.
Right. Of course.
On election day. Yeah.
Now, what would you say was the biggest hurdle you had to overcome during your time in office?
Probably the distance of driving.
Yeah.
Like I say, well, it would be like 60 miles from home to the far end of Lawrence County District, up Olytic and up in there.
Yeah, sure.
That was probably the biggest, was just the tussle of the mileage that I had to drive. And, of course, I would be back home late of a night if I attended something in the evening, and because it was a good hour's drive. I was counting at least an hour to make the trip one way. And, so that would probably be the biggest.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now, in your opinion, what is the most important work of the Indiana General Assembly?
The most important work is a lot of it is the distribution of funds.
Right.
Proper distribution of funds to school districts, and there's so much diversity within your counties and your school districts, and that would be one really important, because so much money goes to your schools from your state budget, and just simply trying to keep things on a level keel, not get them too far to the left or right, either way.
Right, trying to have a balance.
Right, yeah.
Now, how would you summarize your time as a state legislator?
Well, my wife, if you ask her that question, she says pretty well full time.
Yeah.
For the simple reason that I was always on call. I was willing when people would call, but there was a citizen legislature. We don't, as you know, the days that we spend actually in session, and then of course on interim study committees, but it's just part time.
Right. Okay. Now, what would you say is your favorite story or anecdote from your time as a legislator?
Favorite story? Well, I guess it would be the one about our son getting bit by a goat.
Yeah, so let's get this one on recording here. I know you mentioned it to me earlier, but let's tell me the story again, and maybe with a little bit more detail to add into the drama of it. Yeah.
Well, it was, I think they called it Ag Day. Okay. And for young kids to bring their animals to the legislature.
Right.
And they were small animals where they could just carry them around or have them in maybe a carrier box for a dog or something like that. And
sure.
So my wife happened to be up that day with her son, which was probably 3 years old, about 3 years old.
Okay.
3 or 4 years old. Okay, 4 years old. She's sitting here listening, so she's holding up her fingers.
Yeah. Okay.
so they this of course session wasn't going along, so the speaker or the leadership allowed them to bring them right into the assembly, right into the House session.
Right.
Or not session, but into the House room. So our son, he was a fiddling with this little goat that someone had brought in, and the goat bit him.
Yeah.
And just, hang on just a minute.
Sure.
Oh, she says one of her interns had the goat and was kind of squeezing him. So.
Okay.
So anyway, our son got his finger too close to his mouth, I guess, and the goat bit him, and I think it drew blood.
Yikes! Yeah.
And one of the doctor legislators seen him, his finger. Oh my! He just about went ballooning.
Yeah.
And said he'll have to be doctored. Said, you've got to get him to the hospital and get him doctored.
Yeah.
So we ended up going to Raleigh Hospital. They wouldn't take us to the IU Med Center because of his age.
Wow.
So we ended up going to Raleigh Hospital, and if I remember, an intern was on duty.
Yeah.
Well, this intern, he carried on about as much as this doctor did, and he started doing his work, cleaning it up and all, and bandaged him up, and you would have thought that our son had lost his whole hand.
Oh my gosh.
By the time he got, and of course, if he'd been here at home, we'd put a little alcohol on it,
Right.
maybe a Band-Aid, and said that's it.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's pretty well into the story. Had to do a whole bunch of paperwork on account of rabies and all this.
Yeah.
And so that's the way it went. So I contend that our son, Brock Fisher, was the only kid to ever be bit by a goat in the Indiana House of Representatives and maybe the United States.
Yeah. That's pretty uncommon. Yeah.
Right.
Oh my gosh. I guess they haven't allowed goats since, perhaps, maybe. I don't know.
I don't know if that affected. Don't remember if that was my last year. Just don't remember if there was ever any in the future or not.
Yes.
I don't imagine the word got around too much.
Yeah.
I know that doctor, he was, don't even remember his name, but I remember he was a doctor, and he said, oh, he needs to be taken care of. So,
yeah.
Of course, he was using precaution, I'm sure.
Sure. Yeah, and I guess you didn't decide to draft any bills or something to, prevent goats from coming in.
No.
Yeah, okay.
I wouldn't have wanted that, no.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. So another question about sort of your overarching time in the General Assembly. What lessons, if any, did you learn?
Probably the biggest lesson, as I mentioned, was that you may be in total support of legislation, but until you hear the full scope, both sides of the aisle, why you may change your mind. But to listen,
right?
Do a lot of listening.
Yeah. Okay. And do you have any regrets about your time in the General Assembly?
No, not really.
Okay.
Other than I back again to the Lime Law, I do wish I could have got that passed.
Sure, of course.
But no, it was. Well, I've heard it said that if you're not an attorney, you'll be an attorney by the time you come out. But I wouldn't go that far. But you do learn a lot, and as a citizen legislator, you can see the difference between that and the Senate being 4 years.
Right.
While we're supposed to be the closest to the people.
Yeah, makes sense. What about what advice would you give to future legislators or even current legislators?
Well, campaign hard and first, honesty. Be honest, and if you can't tell somebody that you will support, why, tell them why, and keeping it honest and staying close to the people and answering people when they get in touch with you, and just more one-on-one.
Sure. How do you think the state of Indiana has changed over the course of your lifetime?
Well, that's a good question. How it's changed over. Of course, ERA did pass,
right,
and some legislation that's introduced fails. In fact, a lot of legislation fails, but maybe it comes back then another year and it'll pass because of different thinking of the people.
Yeah.
I don't know that if I could really pinpoint the operation, as far as I know, is about the same as far as committee meetings and the assigned to committees and the process. So I think it's a pretty good overall because it gives time for people to be heard.
Right.
In the committees.
Yeah. Okay.
And I wouldn't have a idea of a better process, really.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. That's good.
Yeah.
Let's see. Last few questions here. How would you say politics has changed in Indiana?
Well, as far as politics, I think the Republican Party has pretty well taken over.
Yeah.
I know in our county, why it's, well, in fact, we had a lot of, here in the primary, we had a lot of offices that even didn't have a Democrat file for it.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, they can, during this interim between now and fall, but in 16 election, Indiana really went strong and pretty well shut the Democrats out, in my opinion.
Yeah. Okay. And why do you...
Now what?
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, why do you think there's been such a shift towards Republicans?
Well, it seems like here in the county, there's, I'll pick up the paper and see that the Republicans is having a meeting, and next time I get a paper, they're having another meeting, and leadership, I feel maybe some of it,
okay.
Although they're friends of mine, but it just seems like we're getting outdone.
Yeah, interesting. Now, do you think that politics in the state has become perhaps more aggressive than it was in your time in terms of how people are interacting and how perhaps the way they talk to each other about different political differences? Or
I believe it has changed in that respect quite a bit. It isn't as much of a calmness. It's more radical attitude.
Yeah. And
in a lot of cases.
Why do you think that is?
Well, you want my honest opinion?
Well, I mean, up to you. If you want to give it, sure.
Well, I think it's because of Trump.
Okay. Yeah.
I think it's the attitude with all these riots and in 16 when he was campaigning, put him out.
Right.
I really do. I have a cousin that's a strong Republican, but he told me, he says, he scares me.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
I just think he, but I wasn't surprised to see him win.
Yeah.
Because he was a newcomer.
Yeah.
He didn't have any baggage that I know of as far as political.
Right.
And I think, now whether he'll win this time, I don't know. But I did think, in fact, last time I seen my cousin, or last fall when I seen my cousin, I said he'll win again. But I don't know now.
Yeah.
Since all this, if he keep his mouth shut, he's his own worst enemy.
Right, right.
With all his tweeting and all that, and he just he isn't a leader. He's supposedly a manager, but he isn't a leader, in my opinion.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, it's definitely.
So you asked me, now I give you my opinion.
Yeah. Well, there you go. I mean, it's interesting to hear because I think one thing when whether it's researchers or just general public, go through and listen to these interviews, is that they're going to be curious to see how things changed and why are things so different perhaps today in this era than they were before. And I think, people like you definitely shed a lot of light on sort of this change and just, I think a lot of people will probably find it surprising to hear about there was once a day when Democrats and Republicans were getting along very well, and perhaps their political differences were not so large compared to today. So,
right, yeah,
it's pretty fascinating to see just how much things can change and how divided people have become. It seems so.
It seems like, and I know he's president of the United States, but
right,
and he was he didn't get the most votes, but he got the oh, you know what I mean, the electoral vote.
Right.
But he's so rude.
Yeah.
And I'm just not used to that.
Yeah, he's definitely he definitely upsets a lot of people, it seems. So.
Now I can see where I told my wife when he was campaigning.
Yeah.
I said he is going to turn all the papers against him.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things that's really hurt him.
Sure.
Because they're out to get him.
Right.
And I'm not saying they get everything right. I'm sure they don't. Definitely don't. Because back to the legislature, we could have a session, one day a session, and that evening see the Indianapolis paper come out, and might be some difference there.
Right.
But still, he so rude when he has these interviews, and I would like to have our governor, former governor Mike Pence, aside sometime and hear his own opinion and just see what he'd say about him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think Mike Pence is a totally different person than what Trump is.
Interesting. Okay. Well, I mean, it'll be it. Yeah, I guess we'll see if Mike Pence writes a memoir at some point about his experiences. That would be unique, I'm sure.
Right.
But yeah, definitely interesting times, and I guess a lot will change. A lot could change pretty fast here, depending on how things go. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Well, I understand the Republican convention's still going to be held in North Carolina, but Trump's not going to give his speech. Or is it someplace else?
I guess it's been like kind of split up from what I've heard. Like parts could be in Florida, and something might still go on in North Carolina. But I think Trump himself is supposed to be going to Florida. So.
Yeah, because Florida, I know they said they'd take the whole thing, the convention and everything. So,
sure.
And then, of course, one thing that worries me now, and that isn't the president's fault, but if it's maybe going to be a second round of this virus. It's that's definitely a possibility, and it seems like a lot of people in the health community are definitely kind of predicting that. So. Right. Yeah. So anyway, that's kind of getting away from what we're supposed to be talking about, I guess.
But it's still relevant for the time. I mean, these are interviews and kind of historical moments at the same time. So.
I just hope, and I haven't seen it. Of course, I'm not close to it anymore in Indianapolis. But I just hope that our citizen legislature and the Senate don't get in that kind of predicament the way we are now in the federal government. I hope that doesn't happen.
Yeah, that could make things a lot more complicated. Usually it seems that most people feel federal government is much more controversial than state government, but if states got as divided as the federal government, that would be really, really crazy. So
it would be, and I don't know if even with the state, if we should not have a term limit. For example, and I don't have anything. I've never met the man, but Senator McConnell, who is in the Senate. See, he's from Kentucky, and down here in southern Indiana, that's where we get the news, is from Kentucky mostly.
Yeah.
And boy, they're after him, but he is a powerful person.
Sure.
But he's been there 30-some years, and I don't know if that's a long time, but I guess that's the reason he's been there. A lot of people, just like Pat Bauer, evidently, his constituency thinks he's doing the job. So that's the other side of the coin. So
right.
Yep. Okay. So.
Well, before I get into the last couple questions, you did mention a little bit earlier about Pence at all. Do you know Pence personally at all, or just from things you've heard?
I don't really know him personally. I've been shook hands with him and told him appreciate if he'd support certain things. And oh yeah, I know. Yep, I'm with you, or something to that effect. And he was on a farm tour a year or two ago. Well, longer than that, 4 or 5 years ago, out here other side of the county, and I went. And they had him up in a combine and shelling corn. And
okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. So, in terms of just talking about Hoosiers as a people, what, if any, enduring qualities do Hoosiers still have or hold dear?
Well, I hope that they'll continue to have respect and honesty and truthfulness, and I'm afraid maybe with a tendency to kind of get away from some of that and not always tell the truth and those kind of things.
Yeah.
There's just been so much of that, it gets kind of drilled into you.
Sure.
I think a person has to watch her. I know I've never been one to use big words, and I know I served in the National Guard 8 years, and I'd have to watch awful close. We'd go to field training, and I'd have to watch her. I might pick up on some of those big words.
Yeah.
And so I hope that we continue to be a God-fearing people, I guess I'd say.
Right. Okay. Sure. The last question. What do you want Hoosiers to know about their role in relation to the function of the General Assembly?
Well, I wish more people would take an interest and really get more involved in calling up the legislators and expressing their feelings and definitely not thinking that we're up there to just play, that it's something important.
Yeah.
And like I mentioned, the school funding and the school distribution, and also funding for roads and is another real big one, the distribution of the gas tax and all that. So I just hope that they'll can kind of at least carry on like they were when I was there, if they haven't. Because I think, well, it's just better way of life by far.
Sure. And, as a former legislator, do you think can you think of any ways that, people can get more interested? Like, is there a way to get people to be, to pay attention to more to politics in the state, or?
Well, for example, one of the things I can think of locally is our third house sessions. Get more people interested in that.
Yeah.
Now, it's always attended pretty good with the teachers.
Right.
And the reason being is the legislation that's introduced each year for or against the teachers. They'll be there for both reasons.
Sure.
To either support something or not support it. And I think your local involvement with your county party, and of course you don't have to be involved with your local county. You can pick up the telephone or anymore with electronics technology. Why, it's just awful easy to be involved.
Yeah.
And I'd like to see more people be involved in it.
Sure. Yeah, a lot more ways I guess you can take advantage of the technology now. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Well, it's nothing for me. Like I say, we're involved in Farm Bureau. We're both on the county board, but I can sit here in my living room and have a conference call with the president of the Indiana Farm Bureau, Randy Crone, and the other day when I tuned in, there was like 100 people listening.
Yeah. Interesting.
And then they'll, call in different people from organizations and opinions, and so it's really close to the people if a person wants to make it that way. But then there's a lot of people that absolutely don't want to be involved at all.
Yeah.
Just a certain group of people that don't want to have anything to do with it. But if something happens, then they speak the loudest.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, that's about all the questions I have for you. Are there any things that I didn't cover that you want to mention, or?
Well, are you interested in anything in the future since I got out of legislature?
Yeah, absolutely.
Not really interested in that, are you?
No, I would be curious to know, to see what you've been up to. Yeah.
After I got out of legislature, I ran for a county council, and I served on that 28 years.
Oh, okay. Sure.
And I was president for several years. I don't remember just how many.
Yeah.
But then I was on our local water board for 12 years, and president several years on that. And then I mowed interstate highways for 7 years.
Oh, okay.
And,
wow.
So that pretty well took me to retirement.
Yeah, sounds like you kept yourself busy after you left the legislature.
Been pretty busy,
yeah.
Been pretty busy.
That's cool.
But I enjoy people. We, like I say, involved in church, and we haven't been to our church service since in January, I guess it was, and we're about to climb the walls. We're supposed to start Sunday.
Yeah, okay.
After our regular service, and so, well, it's been interesting. And
yeah, thank you so much for doing this. This was really interesting and helpful. So, I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to do this.
It'll probably be somewhat different.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Well, good to talk to you.
Yeah, good talking with you too. All right. Take care.
Right. Thank you. Yep.
Right.
Same here.
Bye-bye.